And you read especially, and I hope you guys all have, and if not, and you take this as a calling for it, I hope you've read the book of Genesis like really well. And if you haven't had a chance to, you guys know the app Anaphora? The Anaphora app? Buna Macarius Rafla has a beautiful like meditation on throughout the book of Genesis. But the book of Genesis is telling you and I something really, really, really important that we all kind of misunderstand. And people take it and they say, where does it talk about how God created the world? It doesn't. That's not what Genesis is. But what it does tell you is that God created the world. The world has a creator. Let me say it in a different way. You have a boss. And everything that you have was created for a reason and by reason. And reason is a person. That's Christ. He's the Logos, right? He's the Word. He's the reason. Now, the reason that's so important is that you and I, we look at everything around us and we want to just use it. And whatever it is that's around us, we want to use it and sometimes abuse it. And we do all of this completely separate from God. We say, what do I want? What's going to make me feel good? And then based off of that, I act. The reason things separate us from God is because we see them as being separate from Him. Does that make sense? And if I look at a man or a woman, and then I say, how can that person please me? How can they sexually satisfy me? How can they do something, even if it's not sexual, just that's for my pleasure? What am I doing with that person? Even if it's just in thought, what am I doing with that person? Objectifying them. More importantly, what? We are objectifying them. But you know what? Why that? Why that? In any context, why does that matter? See, that's a different thing. Because if I was objectifying them, if I took God out of the context, why would objectifying someone really be a big deal? Like, let's pretend we don't believe in God, okay, for a second here. Let's pretend we don't believe in God. Why would it be such a big deal to not objectify something? Sure, but why does that matter if God doesn't exist? So why would I need to respect the other person? Sure, but who's to say who they are? It's my word against theirs. I don't think they're important. Then they're not important. That's how it works. And tell me if I'm wrong. Feel free, tell me if I'm wrong. If I see them in a certain way, that's what they are. And it's their word against mine. I'm a person. I don't care if you're a person. This is what I want from you, and I want it now. I don't care what you want. Who's to say I'm wrong? Nothing. On the very, very base level, nothing. In Exodus chapter 20, excuse me, before God gives them the 10 Commandments, there is something really, really subtle that we all miss. And it's been taking up a lot of my time lately. God told them something really simple. You know what he told them? He said, I am the Lord your God. How simple is that? But it's on that basis that he could give them the 10 Commandments. Like, imagine if someone random walked in here right now and they were like, okay, this will now be a disco hall. Are you guys going to listen? Why not? He told you what to do. He seemed pretty authoritarian, whatever. Why not listen to him? Who is he? And that brings up a really good question. Who is God? And don't say he's the creator. All of that is true. But think about it on another level. Who is he to you? And you really think about it. Who is he to you? Because this becomes a really big problem. It becomes a really big problem when we're alone or when we have an opportunity for a sin. Around each other, we could kind of keep a certain, not always, but like to a certain extent, we could keep things within a certain range of behavior. So when no one is around, it could easily go out the window. So then, who is God to you? Before he gives them the 10 Commandments, he says, I am the Lord your God. I'm the one that brought you out of the land of Egypt. And if you go back to Genesis, he tells them, and this is repeated throughout the Bible, by the way, he tells them, there is a way of life and a way of death. Choose life. I've given you the freedom to choose. You could choose to be like me, or you could choose to not be like me. It's completely up to you. But if you're not like me, and it's not necessarily a punishment, even though we can look at it that way, and some of the fathers do speak of it that way. Some do, some don't. But it's a consequence of separating from God. Because if you're not alive, you are dead. It's a consequence. Like in the gospel that we read every Sunday, or every liturgy, in the third hour, what do we say about the branch? What happens to the branch that doesn't bear fruit? No, well, you could look at it scripture, but what does the Bible say? Yeah, he says he takes it away. Every branch that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he what? Prunes that it may bear more fruit. So what has separated itself from God, the person who has separated himself or herself from God by choice, and we're not going to get into the judgment of God today, it's a whole other topic. But when we separate ourselves from God, what that does immediately is it makes our thinking die. The nourishment of your thoughts in a spiritual manner dies. So what does St. Paul when he wants to say something like this? Let me get it for you. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. St. Paul wants to explain this concept to us. He says it in a really nice way. My iPad ran away. He says, the unspiritual man does not receive the gifts of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. Let me say it in a different way. The person who's not looking at things from the perspective of God, when God tries to offer him a spiritual gift, he thinks it's stupid. That's what St. Paul is saying. He looks at the offering